Hi there! Before we get started, a friendly reminder. The information discussed on this podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. While our guests are knowledgeable in their respective fields, your personal situation may require unique guidance. We encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for personalized advice. Now enjoy the episode.
Hi, and welcome to AndWon Should Know, where we journey with you on trying to find tips, tricks, anything that can help us with living a healthier life and taking charge of what you should be doing if you're encountering some issues in your life like me. I'm not shy to say so.
And today we're focusing on sleep. And I know sleep has been rather elusive for you of late, hasn't it,
Yeah,
Andrea?
and for you too, because you've been going through some
true.
some things at home with your dad's health.
That's true.
So we've been quite sleep deprived, the both of us.
Yes, lots of anxiety around taking care of things.
Absolutely. Me for 2 years about, pretty much,
Yeah.
since I perimenopause and now I'm post-menopause. Sleeping has been such an issue for me. Getting good sleep. So I was telling Yen that I had really good sleep recently because I was put under GA for a procedure that I'd done. I slept pretty much the whole day. Even after I went home, I slept even more.
I know. I was looking for her and I couldn't. I looked at her last check-in and I was like, my goodness, it's been a very long, I think it was what,
4 to 5 hours.
Yeah, it was insane. But yes, of course, we're not recommending that everyone go for GA.
No, we're not.
To get good rest. But yes, we are actually speaking to a couple of people today on setting up a good system so that you can get best rest for you at home. And on our show today, we're happy to introduce owner and craniosacral therapist, Kathy from Soma House.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And also Lotte from Havea, who's doing business development for them. Very excited to have both of you on our show.
Thank you for having me.
It's all about sleep because I haven't had good sleep for a long time, a couple of years now. So tell us why sleep is so important.
So, as a craniosacral therapist, we are extremely fascinated with sleep. It's also about how the body essentially recovers. Sleep is one of those issues that is extremely multifaceted. And the benefits are easily experienced when you have had a really good night's sleep and you wake up feeling energized, you wake up feeling engaged, you wake up feeling like you remember what you did last night, right? So there's a lot of cognitive memory, learning function that comes with sleep. But a lot of the strategies out there tend to purport lifestyle or behavioral changes that are related to sleep or about helping people get to sleep, but very little is talked about the other aspects or other pillars, or what I like to call pillars of sleep. And hopefully today we can talk more about those things. Yeah.
Excellent. Can you tell me a little bit about what craniosacral therapy is?
I know it's a long word.
It is a long word, a bit of a tongue twister. But yeah, I'm curious because I don't think I'm new to it. So it'd be great if you could help define what that is.
Right. So craniosacral therapy is a form of manual therapy, meaning we work with our hands. It's actually originating from osteopathy, which actually looks at the whole body. So nothing is left behind. So how the body works as a whole, right? And craniosacral therapy, if you think about it, we use our hands or our fingers as the long levers to mobilize the structures that can be bones or muscles. And that helps to create movement or change in the tissues or the membranes. It could be the softer tissues or the fascia, create more circulation or hydration in the fascia. That then stimulates or creates change in the fluids that can improve circulation, lymph drainage, and that can help with the overall regulation or the health of your autonomic nervous system is what we're looking at. So sleep particularly is an interesting one for us because what happens at night, we have this wonderful fluid in our body called the cerebral spinal fluid. Think of it as the water that washes our brain. And every night, and it only happens during sleep, it washes it washes as you are sleeping, and it really detoxifies your whole body. And so when we don't have that process of detoxification or that washing process, because what they found was these neurons essentially coordinate together, they do this dance, and it washes through your system. So all it moves from this fluid system into your blood-brain barrier through the blood-brain barrier, and then it washes out as fluids. And without that, what happens is you may often wake up feeling extremely groggy. You feel like you might have the symptoms of brain fog. You might feel like, oh, how come I can't remember what I did last night? Or your body feels like this, it feels so fatigued and it can't seem to wake up. So with craniosacral therapy, we are interested in the craniosacral system, but more importantly, how the system flushes at night.
Everything that you've mentioned, I've experienced these past 2 years. So speaking to friends as well, people whom I've come across, they're telling me the same thing, the brain fog, the waking up and feeling even more fatigued after you think you've had a good night's sleep. But there's no chance you can get a good night's sleep because you're waking up several times to pee, you're tossing and turning, you're getting hot flashes. So all this is occurring with women in their peri and menopausal years.
Yeah,
so there's actually a science behind this.
There is. So
there's
there actually...
truth.
There is. And the thing with perimenopause or postmenopause, obviously the main changes as women go through these stages is the change in the hormones, right? So estrogen and progesterone are the two key players in this sort of sleep cycle or sleep issue. And when we think about sleep, we want to think about the different pillars. We have physical, we have mental, emotional, and we have the lifestyle behavioral, which is also why we are with Havea. The physical and the physiological often is, okay, so let's say your physical body is, how many of you have, gone to bed when you're feeling really tense and then you just can't get to bed, right? We've all had that, right? But so that's one aspect of physical tension in the body. So physiological is what we talk about in terms of hormones. So as we age and in our perimenopause or menopausal years, what would happen is there's a severe drop in estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen essentially is a signaling hormone that signals serotonin to be produced in our body. Without that, that can really disrupt our sleep-wake cycle. That's one factor. The second factor with progesterone is as it starts to drop, that is essentially a sedative. So without progesterone, you will actually not get that deep sedative type of sleep.
Let me tell you, I recently just got really, really good sleep. It was in the afternoon. It was after I had done an endoscopy, so obviously I was put under GA. And I told Ian, I said, I had the best sleep ever because after the procedure, I went home, I continued to sleep for another 4 to 5 hours and really good sleep.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But of course, we're not all going under GA to get this sleep.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering, Kathy, if that's the case, if women going through peri and menopause are having this elusive sleep, is there something that craniosacral therapy actually does in order to help them through that?
Yes, it can help with regulation, but it can help in regulating the hormones as well. Like one of the main strategies or interventions that a lot of women take during that time is obviously hormone replacement therapy, which is actually not only really beneficial, but it also reduces the risk of cardiovascular issues at our later years. But one thing that a lot of women, because obviously Soma House it's a multidisciplinary clinic, and we have a lot of wellness strategies. A lot of us come to us not expecting the medical treatments, because we're not a medical clinic. And so they're always looking at what are some of the strategies that can help create these synergistic effects that will help with overall regulation. Because if you think about it, our body, it's essentially a cycle. It moves as a form of a rhythm, right? And when you think about when women get together and our cycles start to sync,
that's right,
for example. And there's a beautiful science of entrainment in it, and there's a reason for why it happens. In a similar fashion, our bodies can also sync to the waking cycles of the moon and the sun. So when we think about cyclical change, and when we're in peri, it's a little bit harder because it's quite chaotic. But when we have reached menopause and therefore post-menopause, you can find a new rhythm. And it's about creating the right rituals. It could be creating the right cues for your brain or your nervous system to find that space and opportunity for rest.
So, and how do I do that? Can I sign myself up for one of these sleep clinics?
Is that something within craniosacral therapy where if someone were to come to see you, like what does that process look like? Is it taking a stock of where you're at that point in time, both emotionally, mentally, and then taking stock basically, and then from there, coming through with a remedy for the situation?
So what I'm hearing is that you're asking about the process in which how craniosacral therapy can help to look at this whole holistic perspective, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, every client that comes through our doors, we have a very tailored way of approaching them, which is also why we have multiple therapists in our team, because sometimes you can be working with the physical body, but there's also another emotional, psychological issue that's underpinning all of that. So a counselor can come in to help with that strategy as well. And particularly for sleep, there's a lot of evidence around, have you heard of CBTI? So cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia.
Oh, no, I haven't
So it's using mind and using behavioral strategies to create change and therefore help you sleep a little bit better. But to go back to your question, the clients that come in for craniosacral therapy, I always start with helping them understand a bit of psychoeducation around it does take a little bit of time for the brain to learn the cue of what you're trying to do.
Okay.
Right? And so if you try it once, it's not going to really do much. Just like, when we try a supplement, we try one time, it's not going to make a change.
Work.
And it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then we try it a few more times across a certain number of days. It's when the body starts to feel different. And so in the same way, the body will learn what it likes or its orientation to health, and it will always orientate towards health. And a lot of the times people think disease or illness or pain are not forms of health, but it's actually part of the body saying, no, that's actually part of health representing itself in many ways. Right? So in our process, with the psychoeducation piece out of the way, we then help create rituals, and usually it's either a 1-week cadence for those that have really chronic sleep issues, or it could be every 2 weeks. And then after a certain period of time, it becomes more of a remedial pain management or sleep management sort of practice where they come in every 6 to 8 weeks, or it could be when they know that there's a really busy cycle or a really busy period in their life, or they're going through some major life transition and they're like, okay, hey, this is when I need to step up my sleep game. Yeah,
that's really
something
cool.
like that.
So do they have to come to the clinic on a daily basis then?
No. So I could be once a week to start, and then it could be once every 2, and then as the body starts to orientate towards health, it gets better. The body is really, really smart. It's so intelligent, because once you set up the cues for it, it naturally starts to seek it all the time. It's like, when you've had that really deep sleep right after GA, and then you continued, your body is like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I want that all the time. Yes. So it naturally knows what feels good, and it wants to naturally create more of those opportunities.
Right.
So when you create more of, obviously we don't go on the GA all the time,
yes.
But if once we are able to create it through, let's say, natural interventions or hormone replacement therapy or whatever it is, and we create a ritual that creates a cycle that then tells the brain, okay, now I'm ready to rest.
So it's like conditioning.
Correct. Yes.
That's very cool.
That's how the brain actually works. We need cues.
That's really
in order to inform the nervous system.
Everyone is different, and everyone experiences different things.
Yep.
So I think this is so good because you have a team working towards achieving better sleep for an individual.
Yeah. And you find that people, come in trying the sleep strategy for a while. So the biggest question we get, because we do the hyperbaric chamber, right? You're pumping pure oxygen inside your body, and you're increasing the amount of dissolved and bound oxygen, which also puts your brain into the slow wave brain state that then achieves better sleep. So then the question is, wow, if I go through, because we just did a sleep study on it, and the biggest question we had from the participants was, if I do this and then I stop, what will happen?
Is this something Michael Jackson did?
Yes. He slept in the cocoon like every night. Yeah, right. And there were like rumors saying that he died in it, but he didn't.
Right. Okay.
He didn't. But what he did was like a medical grade version of it, where it was a hard shell, extremely high pressure, which may not necessarily be safe, but he had like a routine or a roster of doctors and nurses on site all the time, because he's Michael Jackson, so he can do that. Exactly. We're not Michael Jackson. Yeah. But he obviously did that because a lot of because he had a lot of plastic surgery, right?
Yes.
And in terms of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, it was very good for wound healing. That was the initial phases of it. Oh. And then they started to find it was really great for cell regeneration, great for sleep, great for skin, great for everything.
And so you have this.
Yes, so we have that.
Oh, wow.
So
I don't need GA. I can just go into one of your hyperbaric chambers and get some oxygen.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So definitely come try it out. But it's one of those things is if you're let's say, for example, if you're extremely anxious, or if you have a lot of emotional dysregulation, you can do the hyperbaric and still find, okay, I'll get maybe my REM sleep improves, but you'll still find that you may not get into those deep stages of sleep because the body is still on guard of like, is it safe to rest? And another aspect of sleep that people don't talk about, which I think is extremely fascinating, is like, we are communal creatures, right? We live in community, we live in tribes, right? And essentially, when you're sleeping, in the past, there will always be someone that's on guard and taking care of you. And, vice versa, when the person is sleeping, you're now on guard, right? So when we lose the sense of community and support or emotional connection with our loved ones, actually our threat signals start to go up.
While we're
It's
asleep.
primal. Yeah. So that's actually why some people, loneliness is a huge factor as to why we can't sleep as well. It's an emotional issue too.
Yeah.
So if we lose that sense of community support, we lose a sense of connection to our loved ones, you can do all the hyperbaric, but we can still find it hard to get those deep stages of sleep.
What I've been experiencing along with a lot of my friends who are pretty much in the same age group as myself, we are able to fall asleep maybe for a good 10-15 minutes, and then we wake up unable to go back to sleep again for maybe hour and a half.
Right.
So what causes that?
That's a really good question. It's a hard question to answer, obviously, because I'm not a sleep scientist or a sleep doctor, but I've worked with a lot of women and men that go through similar issues. What I would say is, I go back to the pillars, so then it's like a little checklist of like, what have we missed? One of the things that could be driving it is the blood sugar level. Okay, so when your blood sugar level starts to spike at night, sometimes with women who have that irregularity, it means that having a little snack before bed can be really helpful to maintain that blood sugar level. Okay, I know it's weird. I'm not saying have a bowl of pasta, like a little nut or a few nuts that can really help with maintaining that, because if your body is hungry, it's going to wake you up. If your body's dehydrated, it's going to wake you up. So let's look at, electrolytes. How is your body hydrating? If you're not hydrating through the day, having 7 cups of water is not going to help much, because then you'll have to go pee.
Yes.
Right? So having a healthy balance of electrolytes can be quite helpful. So we look at those little factors first. And the thing about eating and drinking just a little bit before bed, what it does trigger is your parasympathetic nervous system. It's your rest and digest. So having that, and you know how we stress eat?
Yes.
Some people, when we get super stressed, we just start eating.
Yeah.
And that's because the body's really smart, because it wants you to just relax. That's why it gives you that signal. I need to kick in that rest and digest. So if we think about that as a factor before bed, if you're waking up in those hours, like could it be an investigation around your blood sugar levels?
Yeah, I'm always hungry just before bed.
You're always hungry?
Yeah, and my husband keeps telling me, drink water, just drink water. Drink water.
See, that's the thing. So maybe try having a little snack before bed and see if that actually creates any change. Yeah, and then we're troubleshooting as we go, because obviously each of us have different case history, different genetics, different lifestyle, different story, right?
So you're just saying have some nuts.
Have some nuts, or have like a low low sugar content food. Because especially with women in peri and post, blood sugar levels are something to be really to look at, something to look at too.
And any type of nuts? Any particular type of nuts?
Anything that the one that brings you the most joy, I always talk about, because at the end of the day, it's about what sparks joy inside of you. Because we can have all the right things, but if it really makes us, you know how there are certain things we're like, oh, this is such a chore, I don't want to do it. If you don't enjoy doing it, it's not going to be, there's no placebo effects will even happen, right? So if there is joy involved in that process, how wonderful. Be like, oh, this macadamia nut, I'm going to enjoy this.
Exactly. And hopefully it'll put me to sleep. Good sleep.
That's true.
Because water is not going to work for me. Maybe Lottie can share with us how important it is to get
Yes, definitely.
bedding, set the atmosphere right.
Yeah.
For
I
good sleep.
have 3 kids ranging from 7 months to 4.5. So yeah,
How do you do
actually
it?
I am somehow a bit sleep deprived.
Yes.
But also through pregnancy. All 3 pregnancies, I couldn't sleep. I'm awake for like 2-3 hours and then only fall asleep around 5 till 7 maybe. And then of course the first 6-7 months is, it's still difficult to get to sleep because baby wants milk. And about winding down, indeed, that is very important because all my kids, they love routine. They do very, very well on routine.
Yeah.
If I change this routine, they won't sleep. But all babies are different. I have a baby that needs the cues less than the first one. So it's easier for her to get to sleep. So the more noise in the house, the better.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But she still needs this routine, like switch off the lights, giving her the milk, put on the sleeping bag, then put her to sleep. And she goes to sleep.
Is it like the white noise that she needs, or?
Yeah, the white noise is...
But then white noise or even the sounds in the house is like, mom and dad are around.
Yeah.
Like, my family's around.
So
It's
it's safety
that primal,
aspect.
the safety aspect, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can rest now.
So was that why you went into bedding business? You didn't get sleep? You were having a hard time putting the children to sleep?
So Hevea, we have 3 main pillars that are very important for us. One is sustainability, responsibility, and comfortable. So first of all our products should be comfortable, but with a sustainable angle. So our mattresses are crafted from only natural fibers. So the product that we use for our mattresses is natural organic latex, which is basically the sap of the rubber tree. So what they do on the plantations, they cut the trees, then collect the milk, and that is what they use to craft this mattress.
One thing that I love working with Hevea, obviously, it's being able to create products for us, services and experiences that not only help people feel good, but also there's an element of doing good. We also are extremely passionate about creating access to resources. We have a sliding scale program. We also have community clinics. So when we started working together, I was like 100%, because behavioral and lifestyle factors when it comes to sleep strategies or when it comes to health is an important factor.
Yes.
With a lot of the synthetic fibers that we're talking about can actually create longer term health issues. Right. And we see that even in things that we put on, like I'm also very passionate about menstrual health hygiene, like pads are a huge ones that not only disrupt women's cycles, cause problems like PCOS and cause like hormonal issues, so on and so forth. Right. So how do we, find work with brands that have materials that are not only comfortable, that make us feel good and we want to slide in them and swim in them, but it's also good for the planet and it's also good for our bodies.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I think with our mattress, of course, we cannot guarantee you that you will sleep well once you buy our mattress, right? But
imagine if we could say that.
That would be amazing. But of course, it can help, and especially if you talk about perimenopause women, you get these. You feel hot all the time, right? So natural organic latex, a special feature of this mattress is you won't sleep hot. There's a lot of air circulation that can go through the mattress, and it will not trap any body heat.
So I've never had my AC down to like 18 in my entire life. I'm down to 18.
Fantastic.
I don't have many layers of quilting or blankets anymore because I just have one very thin one, and it comes on, and then it goes off, and it comes on, off the entire night.
Yes.
But do you have a feeling like your body heat is trapped in the mattress?
Yes.
That's where the mattress comes in.
Because before I started working at Hevea, I was sleeping on a blend of foam mattress, because I didn't know anything about this mattress industry, right? Once I changed to this Hevea mattress, I can feel the difference right away. There's no body heat that is trapped inside the mattress, for sure.
You know what I do to thermoregulate is I stick my foot outside of the cover, and like just to kind of at least have like some cool air, and then it somehow regulates the rest of my body that is under the duvet.
I have a question about people, like, you know, they turn the mattress around and then they move it.
Yes. Like they flip it.
Yeah, they like flip it.
Like every
why do they do that? And do you get people to do that eventually after some time?
So you don't need to flip it, and why not? Because it's a very durable material. The good thing with natural latex is if you press it, it comes back to its original shape very easily. So it will not sag as with maybe a spring mattress.
But I've heard about that one as well, flipping the mattress around. Maybe it's to do with the spring.
Possibly.
What about pillows? Getting better sleep with pillows.
So for pillows, it comes with a mattress. So it's like we are selling a sleep system. You have to have the right density of the mattress with a pillow that matches the way you sleep, your body builds. If you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, you need something different. So what we do here at Hevea is we help you find the right system. So we match the pillow with the mattress, because when you sleep firmer, you may need a different pillow compared to when you sleep on a soft mattress.
Right.
I'm just curious, because you're into this whole encouraging people to sleep better and helping them. Does taking magnesium help at all?
Yes, magnesium, as I've learned from one of our nutritionists previously, was, and I'm not a nutritionist, but what I've learned is that magnesium comes in many different forms. And not all magnesium is all the same. You have to get the purest grade, and you have to get the ones, always read what's at the back of your bottle. So if you have magnesium with all sorts of funky things inside, chuck it, useless. Doesn't do anything for you. For sleep, generally people will go to magnesium threonate or magnesium glycinate. Glycinate is the one that we use all the time for most of our clients that come through, whether it's a sleep issue or recovery issue. They usually use magnesium glycinate because of the bioavailability. It's highly absorbed into the body. So that's what we always recommend. But generally, if you are maybe struggling with cognition or cognitive function, learning, memory, or mood, then threonate can also help with like sleep. So we also have people that use like GABA and L-theanine. That is a nice supplement to use. But obviously this is something that you know that you're going to engage in an intervention. You're going to create some kind of ritual, the cues for your brain. And then after a while you can taper it as you go. But magnesium, again, as we get older, it's also needing to have the recovery properties. We just don't recover the same way that we used to. You know, it really isn't. So having more magnesium creates that recovery process for our body. That is what we need. And one of the other things that people will ask, because we have this 300 kilograms of Epsom salt float tank, right? So it's kind of like a big pod, and then it simulates floating in the Dead Sea, essentially. Even if you didn't want to float, you have to float because it's so buoyant. And so what we always tell our clients is that, you know, you can take magnesium, but the best way for magnesium to enter is through the skin.
I was going to ask about that, because I just read that recently, that when we're stressed, we actually leach a lot of magnesium through our bodies, and then the best way to actually receive it back is through the skin and not through a supplement.
Correct.
So through the Epsom salt
Epsom salt is one, yeah. So the float pod has that, and obviously magnesium a huge component as part of Epsom salt. And one of the things that is quite interesting is that you don't need to come and do a bath all the time, but obviously that brain factor is very important, because we're moving from a sensory stimulated world where we're constantly being bombarded with things, right? When there's any kind of light noise stimulant, our brain is always perceiving, is it safe, am I okay, right? Goes back to that loop.
Yes.
And so when we go into this pod where you're in complete darkness, complete silence, which can be really scary for some people, but what it really does is it moves the brain wave into these slower, deeper rest states. And so when the body starts to experience it again, we're creating those cues, and it then can find like, oh, that's how my body can fully rest. So a lot of people go into the pod to sleep. They float in this pod to sleep, right? Amazing. So you don't have to necessarily do that, but you can create a similar experience at home by doing an Epsom salt bath if you have access to a bathtub. If you don't, you can just get a little bucket, soak your feet. Receiving that from your feet is a wonderful way of starting to create a ritual for yourselves, but also to increase the amount of magnesium content.
And for our viewers or our listeners, does this have to be in a warm water, cool water?
Good question. I always recommend any kind of sleep strategy, always do warm. Although there are some people that, because we do have ice baths, people say, oh, I do an ice bath before. But when it's too cold, what it does is creates a response where the body creates more norepinephrine, essentially more adrenaline in your body, right? And that can prevent sleep, right? But let's say when you're very, very stressed, you know how sometimes people, when they're having like a panic attack and they get really angry with people that says, just breathe, just relax. You can't, because your system is already here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you are doing an ice bath, when your system is very, very highly engaged, you need to meet your system at that highly engaged in order for it to switch.
Man, I've been doing it all wrong.
Well, I've been doing it so wrong, and let me tell you why. I came across something on social media, on the internet, and it said before bed,
do an ice shower.
Cold water.
Oh my gosh.
Couple of minutes, just stay there and let this cold water just come over you.
Oh
which
my goodness.
could cool down the body. It could,
but then I can't sleep.
Yes, so maybe because your system is not highly engaged. Maybe you're able to do so much for your life where your stress management is very under control. So maybe you don't need that strategy. So what I would try as a challenge would be, could you do more of a hot? Because what happens when you do like a hot soak or like a warm, maybe not so much of a hot shower because you're worried about like, getting hot flashes and stuff at night. So as they do like a lukewarm shower, what that does is when you come out of the shower, immediately don't just jump straight into bed, have your little wind down process, and what that triggers in your body's response is the cooling down process. So if your body is able to have that cooling down process, then it's like it triggers the thing, now it's time for sleep, because your body has to go down to a particular temperature in order for you to sleep. So if it triggers that cooling response, then the body already signals serotonin, melatonin, all those neurotransmitters are now being activated and saying, this is bedtime.
Okay.
And now I'm able to sleep.
I'm trying it tonight.
Let me know how it goes.
And the nuts.
With the soap, with the nuts.
So with that, I would say try one strategy first, and then monitor it, because when you have too many variables, you don't know which one.
That's true.
Be compassionate with ourselves.
It's very important.
So Andrea, do you also monitor your sleep?
I started, but then every time, like a message comes through, I suppose it's a setting that I've not set. I get the buzz in the middle of the night. So I took it off.
Yeah, because I read something about it that actually people get more anxious and stressed
when
they sleep with this.
Okay, so I'm glad I've taken it off.
And if they see like, I had a bad sleep, because that's what Fitbit or Apple Watch is telling you, but
this is a funny one because I
debunk that.
No, I use the Aura. So I believe in Aura. It's not sponsored. I think it's an easy dashboard for anyone to look at. I always like things that are easy to look at. If you bring in too many analytics, it's like that's not very helpful for the everyday person, right? And with Apple and Fitbit, they have the same kind of, they've really improved in terms of their sleep analytics. But what I would say is that I get a lot of clients that will be like, wow, my Fitbit or my Aura says that I had a great night's sleep, but then I
I'm
really
not
feel
feeling
like
it.
crap,
Yeah.
right? And then you look at the other way around and be like, no, I feel really good, but it's saying I didn't recover at all.
Yeah.
So this is where like technology or AI is moving in a direction where we're losing so much connection with on oneself, and there's a less sense of trust with our own body. And remember that our body's intelligence is ultimately what's important. And so when we're thinking about sleep strategies, it's to return to that intelligence. And you can use technology to help you, but then you still need to bolster that sense of trust from within.
There's a segment that we always have here on And One Should Know about debunking myths.
Okay.
I've been reading a lot about viewing sunlight in the day as soon as you get up for about 5-10 minutes during a nice sunny day, but maybe 15-20 if it's an overcast day. That actually helps with adjusting your circadian rhythm. Is there any truth to that?
Yes. Well, 100%, because it then triggers the response in the hormone system that then tells the brain it's time to secrete serotonin or melatonin, right? But then I've had clients that will ask like, okay, but Kathy, like, what if I turn out all the lights in my house and then I just simulate sunlight? Does that work? So even on an overcast day, you are still getting more lux, then more light into your eyes, because that's where the eye sends the trigger into our glands. You are getting more light outside on an overcast day than you are ever going to get with all the lights turned on indoors. Yeah.
Next one, nightcaps. Having that little bit of alcohol just before bed, can it help you sleep better?
Good question. This one is a tough one for me to answer, just because sometimes with alcohol it's a coping strategy. So I can understand when someone's going through a stressful period, they might need a little bit of negative coping strategy to just get by. But unfortunately, when it comes to alcohol, the research really shows that there's nothing good about alcohol, first and foremost. And all it does is take stuff out of your brain, and it doesn't do much for your system. But more importantly, when it comes to sleep, is it causes dehydration. So if you can accept that you're going out for a social, and you accept that you're not going to have a good night's sleep, then you're okay. You're fine. Have a nightcap if you need to. But if you accept that your body is going to be dehydrated, I would say do your electrolytes before, and then have a nightcap if you absolutely needed to. But no, it doesn't do anything to help you sleep. It actually will create a ritual where the brain will then be like, okay, well, what's the point of producing melatonin? You're going to shut me down anyway. Right? And when it comes to our brain waves, we have our beta, alpha, theta, and our delta, right? And you want to think of the brain waves moving in a way where it's progressive, right? You don't want it to move. If you think about shifting gears in a car, you don't go from gear 1 to gear 4. You have to go progressively. In the same way, our brain waves kind of need to slow down in that same response. Having alcohol and having a lot of alcohol, like too much alcohol, and people go into deep sleep, right? And they feel like, okay, I finally rested. But what happens is your body didn't get that process of the light stages of sleep, or the alpha or the theta, where a lot of that learning and cognition comes from. Does that make sense? Which is why people don't wake up. They wake up the next day like, what did I do last night?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Is exercise close to bedtime beneficial or not beneficial?
So exercise, depending what type of exercise, if it's not to push your body into stages of fatigue where the body needs to now force itself into restorative stages of sleep, because you're going to miss out on one stage, right? Because now the body needs to really rest because you worked it out so hard. So again, depending on the type of exercise, some light exercise to release the physical tension. If you have a lot of body aches, remember the stuff with the physical aspect, that can be quite helpful.
So like light stretching
instead of like heavy exercise. But if you are someone that always ruminates a lot, have a lot of anxiety, and that off switch is a little bit hard for this moment in time, then yes, okay, going for a hard workout can be quite helpful for a short period of time. Again, it's a band-aid solution. Once it creates a maladaptive stress response, then it's going to have long-term repercussions.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
That was so great. Thank you, both of you, Lotte and Kathy, for coming down.
Thanks for having us.
Having this conversation with us about sleep. That was very informative.
Absolutely. And if you have sleep problems, you know who to look for. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've got any questions for both Kathy and Lotte, remember to send them through and we'll get them answered. We'll see you again on
another episode of AndWon Should Know.
Thank you.